Welcome to Whole Lot of Wolves, episode 34 of season 3. We're your hosts. I'm Joshua Buckley.
I'm Paul Lepage.
And joining us again in New York City, Mr. Alex Patakis. How's it going, Alex?
Good. What's up, guys?
Not much. And yeah, guys, thanks for carrying it yet last week while I was out. Still a little bit rough voice, but gonna make it through it. We're gonna battle through it. The training room has been working hard. And but yeah, good job. Hopefully I'm not gonna be replaced in the starting lineup or on the team sheet like Raul Jimenez. That would not be good. So good job, guys. And joining us today is somebody who made their first appearance just a couple months ago. And he did such a great job. We want him to come back on, Mr. Chris Fischer. How's it going, Chris?
Not bad, gentlemen. How are you all doing tonight? Everything good?
Yeah,
we need Josh to heal up here quickly. That's when we need you to be like Lemina and try to heal up here quickly for us.
Yeah, right. Well, let's talk about the game yesterday. Started out strong, and then Jose saw what you do, and it went downhill from there, Paul. 2-1 loss. What'd you feel?
Disappointing in the fact that it was 35 minutes of brilliance. It looked like a really professional, composed performance. The goal was really nicely crafted through the press, and then great finish from Cunha from exactly the type of positions that he needs to be taking up. It was ideal. And up until the point of that penalty, I didn't think they were doing much wrong. They were trying to go for it. They were looking at the opportunities for a second goal. And just during all that time, I was thinking to myself, if that second comes, then it could be 3 or 4, because they look devoid of confidence, they look devoid of ideas. The midfield dominance was profound in the first half. And I think it's crucial that the penalty happened, not only because it swung the momentum, but it effectively ruled Vardy out of the second half, which meant they didn't have a like for like on the bench. So they switched, and that squeezed the midfield. We didn't have as much time on the ball, certainly in the second half, added to the fact with Lemina coming off and Neves coming on. It just seemed like two totally different teams before and after that penalty.
Yeah, Chris, to kind of piggyback there on what Paul was saying, I mean, it looked like Wolves were going to run away with it there in the first 35 minutes.
Yeah, they did. They were really strong after that first 5 minutes, and they carried all the momentum. The big problem that this team has had all year long, when they do strike first, they have really struggled with putting, their foot down on somebody and stomping them and finishing them off. And that showed again yesterday. They're, like Paul said, they were really strong through the midfield. I also felt like when Diego Costa came out of the game, they had nobody to hold the ball up there. And it really was a problem. Obviously, Jose Za, he does what he does. Daddy Longlegs there getting on Jamie Vardy. And it was a momentum swinger. It was a dagger. And again, this team that has struggled so often this season was devoid of confidence once that ball went in the back of the net on the penalty, that they were unable to bounce back. And we've seen that so many times where they just struggle to gather themselves and bounce back from a rough situation.
So we had 2 no stupid questions that came in about Jose Sa this week. One of them was by one of our good buddies, Paul, Mr. Michael Moser, and he said, do you think if the PK didn't happen, would we have won? I think the guys looked really good until that happened. So just answer that first. Do you feel like if that PK doesn't happen, Wolves are able to see it out all the way to the win?
Yeah, for the most part, I thought we were relatively comfortable defensively as well up to that moment as well. So it wasn't like we were facing a bombardment of pressure. It was definitely more the other end. So it really was a momentum shifter, and whether that was confidence or what have you, it's disappointing that they couldn't build on what they got.
How about you, Chris?
Honestly, I don't think so. The way that Leicester City was building, we saw late first half, Mario Lemina grabbed for the back of his. It looked like, I believe at the time, his right leg after stretching out for the ball around the midfield area. When he went down, boy, he helped create that Cunha goal, the first goal. And when he went down, I think that would have left a void, even with Ruben coming in, the captain, as great as he's been in a Wolves shirt. It just doesn't bring that same defensive element, that tenacity, that nastiness that Mario Lemina brings. And I think that was a trickle down factor. And we've seen the solidarity, I should say, of the defensive midfield and the way that's helped Max Kilman and it's helped Craig Dawson back there over the last couple of weeks. And I think it allowed Leicester City to build a lot of momentum even after that penalty, that it just carried on through in the second half. And we saw that on the cross for their second goal, how they were able to cut through the midfield and get the goal. So I think the Lemina injury really hurt that situation.
Yeah, that's a good point. And we'll get back to really kind of diving into this Neves midfield situation. But we had one more question on Jose Saw from Chase Branch. He said, Saw is sometimes so brilliant and sometimes so boneheaded. Do Wolves fans just have to get used to taking the bad with the brilliant? Or do you think Lopetegui might have plans for a different keeper for next season, Paul?
I think this one that Alex has touched on quite a fair bit, that you've always got that feeling in the back of your mind that something like this is going to happen. And it seemed like his first season that it was a really frequent occurrence. And more recently, whether they've coached it out of him or worked on his positioning, but even yesterday, I thought that was rash to come the way that it did. I'll grant the fact that it did look like he slipped, but I still think he was out of position and he was liable to have the ball taken around from him anyway. So I don't like that part of his game at all. And I just think in general, he's had a bad season, you'd say. And I know we've got to look at it in the light of how phenomenal he was last year, but that was the pressure was on and everything. But I think the keeper's so crucial, I think, to a manager, for him to impart his style of play and have that confidence stem from the back. And just based on the body of work this season, I certainly wouldn't be surprised if Lopetegui goes back for his own keeper from somewhere who he can pick and who he can play the way he wants, if it's more comfort with the ball at his feet or what have you. I think it's I think the writing's on the wall for Saw.
Yeah, Chris, it seems like Saw he almost panics when they're playing from the back, which is what Lopetegui's really wanting.
Yeah, and I have to imagine, though, when he was brought into Wolves, that wasn't really anticipated under Bruno Lage. And so for him to all of a sudden have to shift gears and start playing that style of system, I don't know if it's really in his wheelhouse. He definitely tries, but I can't say also that Wolves fans are not, and Wolves supporters are not shocked when we've seen detrimental play by a keeper. I mean, we saw with Rui Patricio at times as well, just since the Nuno era. So it does come, the good comes with the bad. I mean, he made a brilliant save later in the game that kept it still 1-1 at the time. So he's got a big upside when it comes to talent. I mean, they put him on the Portuguese national team. He may not be starting, but he's there amongst the best. So he's got the talent in him. I just don't know if the system that Julian Lopetegui plays really is his style of play. And so, like Paul said, I can't see them looking for somebody else next season.
Any names, Paul? Alex, have you heard any names on the interwebs?
Not really. I think the only one that's been mooted, and I can't even remember the connection, even if there is one, is the Moroccan keeper. And I can't for the life of remember what his name is either. And maybe that was just off the back of having a really good World Cup. But I'm not sure if it's anything other than fans looking at him and thinking, oh, he'll probably make a decent addition, and going off of that. But it's tricky to think of who, if he's got that goalkeeper general in mind that he could bring from elsewhere, if he's worked with someone before. And we got also remember that he was a keeper himself as well, so he's got that understanding of probably what he wants and who can come in to play the way that he'd like.
Yeah, I haven't heard any names either, but I would just add it. Whoever gets relegated, there's a good chance there's going to be a really good Premier League level keeper that might be on the market. You know, I'm looking at like Everton. England's number one is not playing in the championship. That's not happening, and I don't think he's losing that job because I don't think he's particularly at fault for, you know, what's been going on there. So I'm not saying Jordan Pickford to Wolves. Yeah, I'm not like trying to start that. I don't really see that happening, but I'm just saying there could be some really good players that are not necessarily thought of now that are going to be looking for new homes, depending on how the next couple weeks shake out.
Ask Pickford if he likes Brazilian food, because that was what was reported where they went to dinner this last week, a Brazilian steakhouse, which made me bring up think who at that lunch last week, who was the last person to flip their card? Have you been to a Brazilian steakhouse, Alex and Chris? First off, okay. So, and Alex, I'm sure there's other. Paul, I know you have because you live in Houston. You have to have. So basically, Brazilian steakhouses, you go there and it's all you can eat. And they got these guys all dressed up and they come out with the big skewers with the meat on it. And then they just come over and you got a card that's either red light or green light. If it's on green, they come over and go, oh, would you like some top sirloin? Yes. Okay, they cut it and you grab it. Oh, would you like some bottom sirloin? Ones out here, they even have pork or filet mignon wrapped in bacon or chicken hearts, which are surprisingly pretty good. So Chris, since you've been, what's your favorite thing at the Brazilian steakhouse? Because mine is definitely the top sirloin is just and then guys, who would be the last one to turn their car from green to red, which means they are done eating?
Oh, wow. So I'm gonna go with the top sirloin because I think that's delicious there.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, love the one where I'm from, the Tampa Bay area. I haven't been to one near me here, but the salad bar is impressive. So I do enjoy a good salad bar. I mean, I live in South
Fuck the
Florida.
salad bar. I salad bars at Brazilian places are just to make you full so you don't eat more steak.
I get that, but I live in South Florida now. So,
That's
you
true.
know, we have year-round kind of like Brazilian bikini season, if you will. I'm not saying I'm, you know, rocking the banana hammock or anything, but yeah, it's just how you like that for a visual, Josh. But yes, but yeah, that's where I'm going.
You're gonna kill me. Yeah, you are in a little better shape than I am, Chris. You know, banana hammock. I'm not included. So who's the last person that flipped over to red?
I think I'm going to go for Craig Dawson.
Ooh, sneaky.
I think he could put it away. One of those guys that can eat a lot but will never show it.
Alex,
do we know when this meal took place? Like what day?
I'm gonna guess it was Monday.
I'm reaching deep in the bag here. I know Ramadan just ended and Adama's been fasting. That man is hungry. And yeah. I know beef is, I know as a Muslim, you could eat beef, I think, because I just Googled it and I'm pretty sure. And that man's metabolism has to be unmatched. I mean, look at him. So I would go with him if it were before Ramadan ended or after Ramadan ended, which I think might have been a couple days ago at this point.
And Chris?
Alex took my answer, but then again, I thought.
Sorry.
I was thinking about the body fat content and just how much Adama's been sitting on the bench lately, so he doesn't want all that meat to sit. So, you know, I'm going to go with the pit bull. I'm going to go Joao Gomez. I think he's earned it. He's got that high motor, that high metabolism,
and he's Brazilian.
Yeah, he's Brazilian, and you know the pit bull wants some meat, man. Got to get after it.
So Michael Moser and I were texting, and we both agreed it would be Huang. Huang would be the one that would put it away. Sneaky one there. Okay, so let's go back to Ruben Neves now. He came off the bench in this contest, and whether it was kind of coincidental because Lemina also got hurt, or whether we're starting to see signs of something in the system, the play went downhill with Neves. Chris, how weird is it to have your best player that's kind of feeling like not a good fit?
Yeah, it's really interesting considering how much Julian Lopetegui, when he brought in these guys in January, and you can already see how they've formulated this bond, and literally it's what we're expecting to see next season, right? So very quickly, the dynamic of this midfield has changed from being slightly more offensive. Now, I'm not talking about Mateus Nunes possibly leaving or anything, but just between Lemina and Joao Gomez and how much they attack on the defensive side is just impressive. So it definitely solidifies the interior of the field and pushing the guys on the outside of the field. The opponent's attack on the outside of the field is what I've been seeing, at least. And so when you bring in Neves, who I still think should be playing higher up the pitch than he has been since either Bruno or Ewan's come in, it really was surprising because I just think Lemina and Neves are completely two different players. Neves is more of a creator. Lemina is definitely an attack dog. And so when you want him to fit that style of system, I don't know if he can fit it. He definitely is a hell of a player. And, he tends to play at the back a lot more than I think he should. But it's asking him to fit into a role that he's not exactly should be in. I don't know if it's fair to put a lot of blame on Ruben Neves because he's been so tremendous in a Wolves shirt.
It's kind of a pickle Wolves find themselves in and Lopetegui finds himself in, isn't it, Paul? Because here's your captain, here's your guy that everybody loves, and I don't really think there's an argument that he's talent-wise either number one or number two on the team, but does he fit?
I think he does, and I'd have even liked to. I don't think it all came down to that change shifting the momentum yesterday, because I'll go back to them making the switch with Vardy and Dewsbury Hall coming on that added that extra body in the midfield, because I just think that he's capable in that double pivot, and the game that Joe Gomez was having, that should have been enough. With Neves, could have played pretty much his natural game because Gomez was playing so well. I think if he'd have started and Lemina wasn't fit or whatever, we'd have had the same. We'd have had the same first half. I put it more down to them changing shape and nullifying us more. But the only thing that gets me is that both Lemina and Gomez seem much better and more comfortable of bringing the ball out. That they're able to beat a man or ride a challenge or bring the ball away and really motor ahead and crack through and knock the ball off that way. Whether Neves can do that, I'm not sure. Could he, with a little more freedom, in a three? But even then, it seems that it'd be like a change in shape for the sake of changing shape just to accommodate one guy, when that effective 4-4-2 has been working so well. If he has to go to a 4-3-3 again, what are you going to do about Gomez? I mean, Nunes on the right, is he stifled somewhat? Does Neves go? Is he just central? Is he the one that drops back again? But is that bringing the team 10 yards further back when we need to be on the front foot, especially at home? So I'm inclined to think that it's not a bigger deal as people are making out, but it's something that he needs to keep a check on, just because I think he's on to such a good thing with the formation and getting the best out of the players that way, that you can't mess around with it too much, otherwise it could be really detrimental.
It kind of reminds me a little bit, Paul, of back in the Nuno days we kind of wondered if Neves and Moutinho were a good fit together, because it always seemed like they played better when Dendoncker was beside him, even though Dendoncker was a lesser player. And I'm kind of feeling that right now with Neves and Nunes.
Potentially, I think it's more the biggest kicker for me yesterday was Moutinho's lack of impact. That sometimes that's questionable on the manager. That why was he bringing him on for? What was he expecting from that particular substitution? Was he just playing out for a point, or was he noticing that we were struggling in midfield again, so he was there to strengthen it? But it seemed to me that he had minimal impact. It's again not that type of midfielder that ideally you want in that type of situation. So for me, I think it's a conundrum that he's got all of these players which ones fit together better, which ones do the better partnerships form. Is it a case of doing what's best for the team rather than trying to accommodate effectively everyone?
Chris, I really saw you shaking your head yes at all that.
Yeah, because I've been thinking it for weeks. I mean, I think it's finally just to a point where there's a frustration factor. Nunes and Neves, there's something there that doesn't work. And I think it's because of Nunes being a guy who needs to carry the ball forward. He needs to be that guy who can start at the back and go. We've been playing Neves. Wolves been playing Neves at the back. And I'm not really understanding why, when he's such a dynamic sprayer of the ball and get it out to who needs to have the ball at the time. He's not the guy who can bring it from the back to the front. And I think they're almost out of position, but it's because, and in my heart of hearts, I believe it's because Mateus is just so weak defensively that they have no other choice but to play Neves back there and kind of keep him out of position, because, he is so super talented that it has helped tremendously to have Nunes play next to Lemina and Joao Gomez because of their defensive prowess, and allow him a little more freedom to do what he's comfortable with, and he really stars at. So I think that's the difference where you saw in the last two victories compared to the last game. And yes, I agree with Paul. Why Adama Traore, who can just turn the game around just in the sheer fact that he commands 2 and 3 guys when he's on the ball. I understand if he's on the same side as Nunes, it's really a weak defensive side there, but it could have changed the dynamic. It's where you take your offense from being, or your team from being defensive, to creating your best defense by being on the offensive. And I think that was a missed opportunity for Lopetegui.
It's a really good point about Nunes' defense. So, Paul, if you're looking at it and say, okay, Matthias, probably stronger offensively. Neves, maybe stronger defensively. Lemina, obviously very strong defensively. Could you honestly then say now that maybe the Wolves' best overall, not best talent, but maybe best with overall game right now is Joao Gomez, because he's really kind of dominating on both sides of the ball?
Best all-rounder, you can say, at the moment, certainly, in terms of form-wise. He'd probably be up there for me, yesterday's man of the match, if it wasn't probably for Cunha's goal. Take that away, I'd give it Gomez, because he was popping up everywhere, and even breaking the lines and venturing further forward as well. So it's, in one way, it's promising, and there's a lot to look forward to if we could just scramble and get these remaining points, that we can probably really see him flourish through to the end of the season, and be licking our lips at what the prospects are for next year with him and Lemina or whomever. But I think it's just a case that we've hopefully discovered a gem, and he's going to be worth a heck of a lot of money in the future.
Chris, I think you and I have very similar profiles and guys that we target as that's my favorite player. So I know you've got to rate Joao Gomez right now, just like I do. I love the guy. How exciting is it that with all of the drama that it was to get him here, that he's turned out to be a good player and not some, Guedes.
Oh, don't get me started on that guy. But yes, I mean, just from the fan base's relief, right? The supporters' relief of he turned into what has been a great find, because when you look back at the Enzo Fernandez's, all the guys that supposedly were down there scouting and we missed out on, and for Joao Gomez to come out of nowhere and then want to be in Wolverhampton. And then we reciprocated that love when we found out that he was picking us. It's immense. When you're a small club, I don't care what city, even in the United States here, when they pick a Pittsburgh Pirates over going, to the Dodgers or the Yankees or somebody else, it's immense for that city. And you automatically gravitate and want to love that person. And so for him to step up and be this type of player, the guy's going to have more bumper stickers to come, or I don't think they really use bumper stickers over there, but stickers around town and billboards and all of that. And just, he seems like a lovable character on the team.
His Twitter account is like pure joy. Yeah. And that guy takes so much pride in being able to win the ball back. Anytime there's highlights posted of him doing that, he'll put it on with like, yeah, get it.
And he's not Daniel Podence, who like the shot will go 90 feet that way, yet it looks cool on Instagram, so he posts it automatically. He resonates with Wolves fans, and that's the biggest thing. And for a city that we always hear, is struggling at times, whether it's financial or whatnot, for somebody to pick them, it's just such a boon for the club, especially to be the caliber that he is. I'll tell you, it's I don't know if you can find that anywhere else in the Premier League right now.
I think for a lot of our legacy Wolves fans growing up in the 90s, 2000s, the centre midfield was always such of a struggle, lack of dynamism, or we'd sign a great player and they'd get cropped. It always seemed a problem position. And the former narrative used to be, oh, you need a playmaker, and then you need a snotter that someone can get stuck in and just tackle and win the ball. And between Gomez and Lemina, they've totally flipped that profile, that they're defensive, but they're mobile. And it's definitely more of a modern central midfield partnership that you've got that really is an indication of where the game's gone to. And I suppose that higher press or more aggressive press, lots of running. But it really seems that we've got a central midfield after struggling for what feels like decades without one.
Yeah, and it's probably not as big of a get as Neves was, because of the fact we have to remember Neves was the captain of Porto in the Champions League and Wolves were still in Championship. But I'd say, Chris, this is like, because of the fact that he seems like a good kid, a fun kid, somebody the fans can rally behind. I think when Neves is gone, like, this is a guy that's definitely going to carry the torch and kind of have that Wolverhampton spirit.
Absolutely. I mean, just his first game to get that goal. I mean, the myth started then, or I should say, the myth started to become legend then. And just the way that when you see, whether you watch the practice videos or you're watching the in-game action, the way when they celebrate after a goal, that young man seems very well respected amongst the veterans, and that goes a long way. He seems mature more so than his years, and yeah, that really does speak to that whole Neves factor that you're alluding to. And I hate to bring it back to American sports again, but that central midfield right now reminds me of just a hard-hitting bunch of safeties in the NFL or football, where you're afraid to go over the middle with those guys because you're going to end up with your ankle busted or your knee busted or something. They're intimidating, and they're only going to get stronger the longer they're together.
Being an Eagles fan like you are, Chris, do you think you will ever love Joao Gomez as much as you love Lane Johnson, offensive tackle for the Philadelphia Eagles?
I'm starting to put, and my favorite player of all time is Brian Dawkins, who is a hard-hitting safety who would knock your mother out. So I see Joao Gomez having that type of potential. Let's put it that way.
I like that comparison, Alex. Dawkins. That's a good one.
Yeah. I I'm not an Eagles fan. I'm a Packers fan, but I always loved Brian Dawkins' entry when he would come out of the tunnel crawling. That was certainly intimidating. That has some pit bull vibes or like Wolverine vibes to it as well. I like the comparison.
I am glad, seeing as I'm becoming resigned to the fact that our boy Adama is going to be leaving and Neves is going to be leaving, that I've got somebody that I can immediately grab towards. I thought it was going to be Aït-Nouri, but he apparently like knocked up Lopetegui's daughter or something. I don't know what's going on at this point. Don't. It's just not even a rumor. Don't put that on Twitter. So yeah, I mean, there were positives at least, even though there were no points to be had. With Gomez, obviously a concern right now, Paul, is Lemina's status. Neves replaced him in the game at halftime, but you definitely could tell right before the half that he tweaked that hammy.
Yeah, he went down. I think they may not have showed it as zeroing in on him, but it was part of the move, and it was the camera angles behind, and it was definitely an uncomfortable position that it ended up in. So it was. I think the way that the first half was going as well, that the only way that he would be coming out if he wasn't fit to carry on for the second half. So it's always a risk. That particular muscle group as well. So whether they were just being super cautious for these games coming up, or whether it is our worst fears, we'll have to wait and see what the news is.
It didn't look like an overly bad one, Chris. But hamstrings, you just never know.
Yeah, absolutely. And what kind of shocked me is I remember him doing it, and he grabbed right for his hammy. And even though they had a little bit of a replay, but that's not what they were really focusing on, I believe. And he grabbed it. And my immediate thought was, I even tweeted about it and said, "Oh no, let's hope it's not long term." And then he carried on, and I was kind of surprised. But then I want to draw back to last season. There was a player, I think it was Wang, who had the problem.
Yeah,
he had a hamstring, and
he had hamstrings made of chewing gum.
Right, and so Bruno kept him out there, and I said, "Don't do the same stuff again," just because it prolonged the problem, it extended the problem. And so I was glad to see that he came off at halftime. But I do believe that ties into the whole momentum swing. I mean, it's just like when the dominoes started to fall, it was big problems, and they were able to slash through the middle of the field, and they created issues. But I'm hoping it's not long term. I mean, we what is it? 3 of our remaining games after this all come against clubs that are top 6, top 8 and higher: Aston Villa, Man U, and Arsenal. So that's definitely tough, and you need somebody who's relentless like that outside of Joao Gomez to be able to try to go get us some points in those games.
Yeah, completely agree. Still had a chance at the end, Paul, potentially get some points thanks to maybe a penalty. Maybe it was a handball. What do you think on that? I saw you added to the notes VAR checks badge, and
again, in real time, you didn't even notice it. No one celebrated or anything. And then when they do go back to look at it, you do think that there's some substance them doing it. And it was just the narrative that got me, that when it started to go there, it's so frustrating. Never mind being in the crowd and not even knowing. So frustrating to us, where the commentary team, they hear what's going on, and they might have a feed even for the replays that were being shown, because it seemed to me that Courtney Sweetenham-Kirk, who was on Colour Comms, she was like, "Oh, that's definitely a penalty. That's definitely the penalty." Then, like, as soon as it wasn't given, she like changed the tune so quick. It was like the Premier League like got a message down to the broadcaster to say, like, just shut the fuck up, we're going to brush this one on the carpet, don't make a big deal out of it. And so she changed the tune so quickly from saying, "Oh, his arms extended, that looks like a penalty to me," to, "Oh, you don't want to see them given, even though the letter of the law, it's a penalty." It's like, make your mind up. just and when you do see it, if it would have been a glancing deflection, and it was out there, but it didn't make any difference, fair enough. But it cannoned off his arm and went the completely opposite direction from what the ball was coming in on. So I don't know. And just not to even let the ref go over and look at the screen, that it just, I've given up on even getting worked up over it anymore.
I do think if there's one change that needs to be made on VAR, it's should automatically have the referee run over to the screen. That's what we do in the NFL. It's, hey, the head referee goes over there and checks it out. I mean, it seems like that should be the thing. He's the guy down on the field making the calls. VAR, in that case, VAR could have alerted him, hey, possible handball. Okay, now you go to the sidelines and check it out. I think there'd be less complaining that way, Chris. I mean, you may have guys like some MLB umps who won't change the call just because they're dickheads and, pride. But it seems like if they're the ones that are making or missing these calls and then can see them every time, that changes things.
It's so funny because both of those comments from Paul and yourself, Josh, circulate around the world that I've lived in my life. So one of those dickheads I've known since I've been a child, and his name's Vic Carapazza, and he was called out last night during the Orioles game. I grew up with him. We hung out together all the time. Not that he was a buddy of mine. He was a friend of a friend, but still. And yes, I don't think your sentiments – well, I should watch myself. We're on a live podcast here. But anyways, and covering the NFL as a sideline reporter, I can tell you there are moments, Paul, this is where it speaks to you, that in your ear you will hear, you'll hear something, you'll see something play out, and your producer will tell you, you can't say that. We're not going to say that on the air because it doesn't fall in the guidelines of whatever the rules are. And so therefore, in the color commentary's perspective, she may have saw something, but unless they tell her specifically that they're going to show a replay, she can't further elaborate on that. So that's where her producer is probably telling her, just stop talking about it. So it is a muffled situation where, they should be looking at it, but they're not. And yet I do believe in a way there is a checking of the badge at times. And if it doesn't fit into the dialogue of what these leagues want it to go as, I think that is a problem because it quiets and stifles a lot of the commentary that we hear on the television and the way that the game plays out. So to Josh's point, I honestly believe they do need to put a mandate in next year where you do run over to the sideline. Even if you have a question about it, if the linesman has a question about it, you run it over the sideline. You will get into this whole problem we've been seeing in other sports where it slows down the game, the flow of the game, which will ultimately lead to fans in the stands getting really pissed off. But if it makes the game better, then we have to go with it. But I think we should start that, in the tier system. I think it needs to start lower in the tier and maybe bring it to the championship first and then elevate it to the Premier League to make sure that it's something that's going to work at the top level.
Yeah, and that's a great point about the producers on there. Chris, being a broadcasting guy, I know you probably listen to the commentators with a different ear than a lot of fans do. With my broadcasting background as well, I try and give guys the benefit of the doubt, but I do feel like, definitely with the Premier League, there is some bias on there. However, I can say probably, and why do you think it is, that the best broadcasters for NBC's coverage are all the women? I mean, do you agree?
No, absolutely. I do agree. And, I don't think it's any different from what I can tell from coverage, whether I watch it on Peacock or I find a streaming service. But when I watch over there, match of the day, they're pushing Wolves games all the way to the back. I think it falls into the same system as we see here in the States, where it's big market wins, clubs that have the best following, that sell the most merchandise, all that. They have the biggest payrolls. They all went out. And so they go to the top of the pecking order, and all the other teams fall to the back of the pecking order. I don't think also within the United States here, and I'm not trying to be political, but because they don't have any players in the States, because they have Chinese ownership, I think that all plays into it also. So being small market, Chinese ownership, no United States players. I mean, look at the game we just saw that got primetime coverage the other day with the Leeds game. I mean, 5 Americans playing in that game. Of course, that's going to go to the top of the list. But I also don't think they look for quality so much. I just think it's market share, and that's ultimately what it comes down to.
Yeah, I mean, Paul, obviously Jackie Oatley is going to be a favorite of Wolves fans because she's she's not a homer. I think that's what makes her good, but she definitely knows more about Wolves, having been a fan and following them for as long as she did. But I thought, Courtney Sweetman Kirk did a fantastic job again. I mean, I'm listening to her and I'm like, this is a lot better than some of these other guys. And it may be because they haven't played in the EPL. And I think that what you kind of see is there's just these former players can't let their old allegiances die. I think in the NFL or in MLB, guys can do that for the most part, but it seems like none of these other guys can do that. Does that kind of sound spot on?
She seemed to be really well schooled in both teams, and I think a lot of what she was picking out tactically in the phases of the game was spot on as well. So I think it came down to her that it was just a very well researched and well structured appointment. I think what we find with some of the others, and especially the ex pros, is you've either got that bias that is very difficult to let go, or they're getting so far back generationally that the game is just night and day compared to the era that they were playing in. So even to the extent of Dave Edwards, that obviously he's got that potential Wolves bias, or he certainly knows the lay of the land in terms of talking about him. At least it's relevant in he's got that more recent experience. Some of the dinosaurs, like some of the stuff that Gary Birtles comes out, it's just dreadful. So that's the big one for me, is it comes down to when they're actually playing the game and how much they understand it now.
And I'm sure Chris can tell you it's not an easy job. It's a harder job. I just always ask for fair coverage, with stuff, and I do feel like that's harder to find in the EPL. I kind of got Doris Burke vibes on Saturday, which is good. I feel like Doris Burke, I know she's not everybody's cup of tea. I think she's the best analyst in all of basketball broadcasting, me personally. So that was my little deviation into the broadcasting world, which fit in well with Chris on the broadcast.
Don't forget, so real quick, Josh. I mean, we're playing Rebecca Lowe's Crystal Palace this week, so
yeah,
we'll get a little bit of love there.
Rebecca Lowe hates Wolves. I don't know what it is.
She does.
She does, but she's good too. That's the thing. It's like you can tell she's just like, whatever, Wolves. But she's a really good studio host. I mean,
yes.
it is what it is. I actually like the team they have with Tim Howard there and everything. I think that's a good one. So one more thing on this game. There were some on Twitter that were already saying we were going to lose just because, Lopetegui came in with no chinos and no turtleneck. And he certainly is flashing the chest to the ladies, Paul. What do you think of that?
It did seem the writing was on the wall when those pictures of him coming in and it was a tracksuit and not his usual attire. And often you laugh it off, but then right at the end of the game, you're thinking that was definitely the reason that we lost. It was Lopetegui and his choice of clothing. So I'm so superstitious. I will wear same pairs of underwear and not wash them and all stuff like that. So any hint of anything like that's negative, I'm all on it now. It's a crucial one for me that he dresses correctly.
What's your biggest superstition, Chris, that you have? When the Cubs were making their World Series run in 2016, I wore the same pair of Cubs socks for every game in the playoffs. And they have giant holes in them now, and I refuse to let my wife throw them away.
Growing up, I was a little more superstitious. I remember, was in 1997, my Philadelphia Flyers were making a Stanley Cup run. I sat in the same spot every night, including a 5 overtime game, which my knees gave out on me. It was terrible, but I wore out the spot on that carpet. And yeah, I'm one of those, you sit in the same spot and you don't move and you stay there and you don't shift too much if you don't have to. I saw Alex definitely had a smile come across his face when the whole style situation came up. But my question is, what if JL goes with like maybe just a FUBU tracksuit or maybe a starter jacket? You know what I'm saying? Because it's kind of fashionable, but it's tracksuit. Or what if velour?
Oh my God, we need some of those mid-90s starter jackets, like EPL style. Holy God, those would be flying. Like, how have those not come back, Alex? Like, everybody admits those are the greatest jackets. Why have they not said, all right, we're bringing back, the pullover, big puffy 90s jackets for the NBA?
I'm shocked that they haven't, because if you ever tried to get one now, it's really hard. Like,
it's
they're
really hard,
super
yeah.
expensive because everyone wants to be rocking these now, but they're like hard to get. So just release like a retro edition and it's going to sell like crazy.
I had a Chicago Bears one back when I was in middle school. So it was, 94, 95, that my dad had gotten at a Korean sweatshop when he was over there. But man, you couldn't tell the difference.
Oh
It
my
looked,
God.
it looked sharp. I also had a pair of Reebok pumps as well. Man, I was a freaking cool kid. Little did they know, some little 5-year-old making 2 cents probably sewed it together.
Oh my God. I was laughing during the talk about it because I was just thinking that maybe there's a chance that like Lopetegui, like I'm thinking about myself during like COVID and everything like that, and I've slowly devolved to someone who, like, a day that I put jeans on is like a really motivated day. So maybe like if he's wearing a tracksuit on a Saturday, it's indicative of the kind of week he's had. And maybe training wasn't so great. And maybe he's been up late trying to figure out how to beat Leicester and he's really stressed. So he doesn't want to put the chinos on. He doesn't want to wear a belt on Saturday. Like maybe it is bad news when you see him like that, because it's reflective of like what's been going on elsewhere in his life. I know that's how I am. Like, I'm permanently in sweats now because life is a mess. It's like, come on.
Yeah, especially working at home now, chances of me wearing pants are not very good.
As Paul said, he doesn't even wear pants during the podcast. We're just lucky he doesn't stand up.
Yes, we are. And Paul, you've been teasing this turtleneck for a while. You gotta reward the viewers here.
It's finally arrived, thanks to Mr. and Mrs. Lepage back in Sedgley, West Midlands, who dug out hundreds of photos to find this one that I knew existed, and it won't translate very well to a podcast recording. So I'll explain it as accurately as I can, and then we will share the image on the socials. But it is a very white polo or turtleneck, and I'm not sure whether it's so white you can't actually tell that it's a turtleneck, or with 14-year-old Paul being a little chubby, it was my double chin getting in the way. So check this one out.
Oh, that's lovely.
The glasses.
So this
Man,
was
you look very distinguished, Paul.
Yeah, that was in Sir Jack Hayward's restaurant at the club, and I'm pretty sure that was my 14th birthday. So Wolves cake and everything.
Paul definitely had the second dessert that day.
That's right. I ate all of the cake, that's for sure.
Wow. Were you like 6 foot already in that photo?
Not quite. Yeah. I was still a big kid, and thankfully the height did enough to spread the chunk out a little. So
that's what she said.
Yeah, it was just to show that they did actually run with that turtleneck design, and I do look very 90s. So
They got to
What do you
bring it
think?
back.
Yeah, Lopetegui in a white Wolves turtleneck, Paul style. That would break the internet, guys. Good time. So we'll post that on Twitter, right, Alex?
Yes. Yeah. If you're looking to see that image, WLW Pod is our Twitter handle. If you don't follow us already, go like that post when it's up, and obviously follow the show for lots of other good things.
And I totally expect Andrew Barlow to turn that into some type of movie poster.
Yeah.
Don't let me down, Andrew. Don't let me down.
Enjoying a whole lot of Wolves? Whether it's on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you're listening, don't forget to rate and review the show so that we can make sure to continue to grow the pack. Thanks for listening, and up the mighty Wolves.
All right, guys. Well, it's going to be a busy week. We don't have an opposition guest lined up because there's 2 games this week. The first one is Tuesday against Crystal Palace. That one's at home, 2:30 p.m. Eastern time, 1:30 Central. So be already planning those 2-hour lunch meetings. And then Saturday, Wolves are back at it at 10 a.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Central against Brighton. That's 7 a.m. Pacific. Guys, man, that game where I had to wake up at 7 o'clock, and that was when I started like not feeling well. God, that was miserable. I don't know how you West Coast guys do it. Oh, miserable. 7 o'clock. So anyways, let's talk about Crystal Palace first. Well, I guess even before even talking the games, we have to kind of be looking at the table here. I know people are worried because 3 points probably would have spelt, we're free and clear this year. Didn't get it. However, they're still 6 points clear of Everton, 6 points clear of Leicester. They're at 17 and 18. There's still Bournemouth and Leeds in there. 9 and Forest, they're on 27 points, so we're 7 clear of them. So I don't even look at the games this week, guys, as necessarily we have to get 3 points. As long as we can I'd be happy with 2 points, because honestly, even though we've got a tough schedule coming down the stretch, I'm looking at Leicester's schedule and Everton's schedule and Forest schedule. I just don't see them getting 6 more points, 7 more points than Wolves. What do you think, Paul?
I don't think there's that type of swing either, and I'd be pretty content if you went these next 2 games without losing. I think it's gonna, in that scenario, it's going to play out elsewhere, that the table's pretty much going to look after itself because of who the other teams are playing below us. Like even today, West Ham thrashing Bournemouth. You think, well, they went above us, but really they're still on the same points. They've got that game in hand, but it knocks Bournemouth, so they haven't gone anywhere. And I just think that we are the teams that are safe, and I'll probably class us just about okay, are those that have got 9 wins. So Palace, West Ham, ourselves, Bournemouth. I think we're okay. That probably puts Leicester into it now. If they pick up another one, that could bring them around. I just don't see the likes of Leeds or Everton, Forest putting a type of run together that could suck us into it. Maybe one of the teams below us, but I think we're just going to need we're going to need that win, and I think typical Wolves, it'll come in the game that we're least expecting.
Yeah, it'll be like the Manchester United game, or hell,
I don't
Arsenal
even
game.
think that. I think it could conceivably happen on Saturday. That whilst I wouldn't mind a point. A point would be a great result. I wouldn't be surprised. It'd be typical Wolves if they lose at Leicester one week and then go to one of the form teams of the division who've had a great season, and turn them over. It'll be the absolute reflection of how consistently inconsistent we've been.
Yeah, Chris, I know you see a lot on Twitter like we do, as far as, people like, oh my God, we're being relegated and stuff. But it's almost like not thinking these teams have to play other games as well. I mean, let's look. Leicester and Leeds play on Tuesday. Okay, those are both teams below us. So there's a possibility somebody's getting no points there. Nottingham Forest is playing Brighton, and Nottingham Forest right now is a freaking dumpster fire. You know, Everton's going against Newcastle. That's on Thursday. Newcastle just beat the holy hell out of Tottenham. And then this weekend you have Leicester versus Everton. That's on Monday. Bournemouth versus Leeds, Nottingham Forest versus Brentford. Like, none of those, even though we can look at our schedule and say, well, there's some tough games coming up. The only one that I can look and go, we should win would be Everton. But some of those other ones, I'm like, well, the other teams have to be playing those too. And they're not very good right now.
Yeah, the way I ultimately see it, though, is look, you're in control of your own destiny. And by picking up 2 crucial points over the next 2 games, if we can get draws out of the next 2 games, we've effectively stayed out of the relegation battle. But if we, for the rest of the year, but if somehow, which we don't have we don't normally fare well against Palace as of late.
Yeah, it's true.
If we lose tomorrow, we're going to start hearing the grumblings. 2 losses in a row. Palace is unbeaten in 4 as we go against them tomorrow. So, with Lemina being out and Palace's speed, it just doesn't seem like a great recipe for the Wolves, even though they're favored. I mean, if you go on this little Google thing where you pick the game and all that, it says they're favored 46% and 29% for a draw. So anything that would give them a point, I'm in favor of. If you play out the rest of the season, yes, I agree. We could sneak a win in there. I'm hoping it's the Aston Villa game just for rivalry's sake.
Right.
But looking at the other team's schedules, with them only being 3 points potentially behind us at some point here soon, it's uncomfortable. I don't think we all want to deal with that. We don't want to deal with the negative talk. I don't think Lopetegui will want to deal with it. So I think they need to go in and get as many points as they possibly can in these next 2 games. And if they can effectively get 4 out of the next 2 games, it's over. We're out of the relegation.
Yeah, I agree. And Paul, I think too, even if there's losses in here, which there's going to be, they're not going to go 6-0. There's going to be losses. As long as we can keep those to like 1-goal losses, that's going to help the goal differential, which right now Wolves are on -17. But you look at the teams below them: Bournemouth -32, Leeds -21. Everton -22, Forest -33. I mean, that gives them a tiebreaker, so that's another little bit of wiggle room.
Yeah, I think I mentioned it a week or so ago that the one benefit and knock wood since Lopetegui's arrival is that we've not had any of those embarrassing losses of a 4 or a 5 like some of those other teams have had even recently today and previously with Leeds at the last week. So I think if you do maintain that solidity, it does help us. It could help us in that tight game that's heading to a 0-0 potentially, and we're able to pop up and sneak a winner. So I think we're going to be okay thanks to the defense.
Yeah, I mean, even if, let's say we get no points, worst case scenario, no points this week. Okay, well, Everton is playing, Leicester City and Newcastle. Okay, what? Maybe best case scenario, they get 3. Maybe they're still 3 points behind Wolves. You look at Nottingham Forest, they've got Brentford and Brighton. I'd say 3 points again with them max. Leicester, I mean, well, Leeds and Leicester are playing, and then Leicester and Everton. Yeah, some of those guys aren't getting points just by the way they're matching up. And so, if you still have that 6-point cushion with 4 games left, I'll take my chances with that, knowing Everton's still on the schedule, even if Arsenal's there at the end.
But it puts so much pressure on that Everton game. That's the problem. That's what I don't like. Is
I'd prefer it be over by then too. Yeah.
Right. I mean, just hearing you talk like that, the only cushion I need is one from my rear end right now because my sphincter is tightening. It's just 3 points back or 3 points ahead is just not enough of a cushion, and with the tough road ahead. And that's just my personal perception.
Mm-hmm.
I am the sky is falling kind of guy. I can't keep that optimistic mindset.
You're a Philadelphia fan. That's why.
Exactly right. Exactly right. It's all one and the same. I enjoy
Yeah.
the pain of
Yeah, well, as growing up as a Cubs and Bears fan, I get you. I'm a masochist. I don't know. I guess I'm definitely looking at not just how many points we can get, but are there the points for the other teams? And I don't know. Now, if Wolves go 0-6, yeah, we could be screwed. So we'll see. This is a big week for not necessarily our results as much as other results too. And then we'll kind of have a clear ID. And obviously, I feel if we get 4 or 6 points, we're starting to look ahead towards the next season and who's going to be manning the front line between Big Sassy or Fabio. So Tuesday, I think we could probably assume Lemina will not play on Tuesday if it is any kind of hamstring thing. So, Paul, how do you think the lineup looks against Crystal Palace? How do they fit Neves back in there?
I'm going two ways with this lineup. The first is, and I'm hesitant to say it because it's not really looked very good, is bringing a 4-3-3 in that sees potentially a midfield three of Neves on the left-hand side slightly, Gomez on the right, and defensively Traore comes in, or Boubacar, that he just comes in and has that job to sit and break up play, because for where we've come undone against the Palace team has often been in the midfield, and they've often overrun us, or they've just had their bodies to close down and stifle us. So I think, however he lines up, he's got to be prepared to win that battle. Then the only thing that does is potentially mess up the forward line a little when you've just got that potential form, like partnership forming with a 10 and a 9 with Cunha and Costa. How do you play them, and where does that third attacker fit in? Is it someone who just has a free role, either Sarabia or a Traore even? So then that goes well. If with that defensive in the midfield, does Bueno come back to be more attacking down the left, so that we got that constant passage down the left hand side of someone offensively? So that's where I see it with a 4-3-3. I can see the current formation, the 4-4-2, with Neves and Gomez, potentially Nunes, that can be a little more tucked in. But I think if that's the case, you do need more of an attacking outlet down the left. And I'm not a fan of Podence at the moment. I don't think this game may be ideally suited to Sarabia with what they need to do. I'd be inclined to potentially play either Wang further out left, or maybe even start Neto and then stick to the two up top with Costa and Cunha.
How about you, Chris?
Ironically, I was hoping he would say Pedro Neto, because I would play Pedro on the left. I don't know if Lopetegui is going to put Costa out there, given his age, to start again. Do we see Raul Jimenez get out of the doghouse and maybe get a start with Cunha there? I don't know. I could see Wang starting there at the 9, just because he played, when Costa came off, he kind of came in for that role. I think ultimately, in my mind, I think he's going to go with a 4-3-3. And I like the Boubacar Traore call. I think it was a great call, Paul. I think it would be interesting to see him out there, but his fitness level is what I worry about, because we haven't seen him tested really since coming back from the injury. And we know Crystal Palace has such speed on the outside that I'm leery on the fact if he can keep up at times. So I would probably roll Mateus Nunes out there to see if he can play defensively, but I would have a quick hook on him if it's not working with him and Ruben. And I'd bring in Hugo Bueno and Totti. He goes to the bench this week.
Yeah, especially with that athleticism for Palace.
I want to just go back a little bit to the last game here. and I don't know if you all picked up on it, but early on in the first half, you could see Craig Dawson quite a bit yelling at Max Kilman across the field. And I read a lot of stuff, whether it was Express and Star and, Birmingham, and, they really gave Kilman credit in that game for having the strongest game amongst the defensemen. And he didn't pass the eye test for me. I didn't see it. I mean, the 2 goals, even Vardy's break-in, was on his watch. So maybe it's time to bring Nate Collins off the bench as well. I don't know if we need to shake it up a little bit, and give Kilman a chance to sit back, relax, and watch. But I would like to see Hugo Bueno. I'd like to see Nate Collins. I'd like to see Dawson and Nelson Semedo on that right.
I do love the Karate Kid.
Yes, I do.
So, guys, let's look at our nice little standings after this week. I tried the reverse jinx by saying 1-0 Leicester after a couple of picking against Wolves and them getting 3 points. Didn't work this week. Alex, you saw I posted on Twitter before the game, so I still get credit for it. But our guest spot is still in the first place with 28 points. Chris, you got none of those points though, so you got to step it up for them. I'm in second with 23. Alex has 21. Paul, 17 points. Can you count?
Definitely Southampton form.
All right, so Chris, we'll start off with you with this Palace game. What is your prediction?
Well, I'm going to try to help you gentlemen creep up the board a little bit more and hopefully put on a reverse jinx here. I'm going to go Palace 2-1. I don't like the matchup. I just think they have too much speed. And I want to just be generous for inviting me on. And I'd like to use my Philly jinx, as they say, and put it on Palace and get our Wolves a win.
It's actually a pretty good prediction, I think. Alex?
Yeah, I think there's sometimes the best logic is the complete opposite of what should happen. So
with this team, yes.
I think they get a win this week, but I don't think it's this game. So I'm going to take Palace. And I think we'll have to suffer through like a 1-0 or something like that. And we'll all be wishing we actually were working instead.
And then we'll have to hear moaning for like 4 days. It's going to be miserable. Paul?
Yeah, a lot to those points that it's a horrible team to play at this time of the year, with something certainly riding on it for both teams, and that poor record that we've seemed to have got, especially at home. I can only remember that one win in lockdown. So the signs all point negatively, but I was fearing a lot of what I was saying when it came to playing Brentford, and we totally shifted the narrative of that and looked pretty competent and took it to them. So if they take it to them and just go for it from the outset, get on the front foot, I think we could win. But I'm going for, I can see a win out of both of these next 2 games, but I'm going for both. It'll be 1-1 draws. So 1-1. 1-1 on Tuesday, 1-1 on Saturday.
Yeah, these midweek games, Wolves always seem to like drop a turd. It feels inevitable. I do like the 2-1 Palace. I think it'll actually be a fairly interesting game. But yeah, I could see that happening. So I think I'm going to follow Chris there and say 2-1 Palace. Now the Brighton game, as Alex said, when you think you've got it all figured out, Wolves go and totally redeem themselves. Guys, I'm going to say they get a 2-0 win at Brighton. Paul already said 1-1 draw. What say you, Chris?
I like a 1-0 win at Brighton. I was actually going back to the Palace game. I wish we had the banner there, kind of ESPN style, where everybody kind of put their predictions out just to get that reverse jinx. When everybody picks the other team always wins. But no, I'm going to go 1-0 Wolves over at Brighton. I think Lopetegui's going to kick him in the ass. I think they're going to burn the white jerseys, the white shirts.
The frost is done.
JL's going to show up at some Gucci, and we're going to go in there on a mission. And it's a crucial game for the table, I think, and we need to go in there and show our best. And I don't know why, but I really like Adama to have a big game in that game.
I like it. Alex?
Yeah, I'm going to win at Brighton because it doesn't seem to make sense. But also, it kind of does if you look at it. Brighton, I mean, first off, they played 120 minutes and had a heartbreaking loss in penalties in the FA Cup semifinal. So they're coming off of that, have to bounce back and go away to Forest. Not an easy place to go, but theoretically a place they should win. And I just feel like by Saturday, they're going to be exhausted. So I'm going to go spirited 1-0 Wolves win, clean sheet, pizza for the media, Brazilian steak, or maybe something else for the team. And we're right back on all the fun stuff we do on here rather than looking behind us in the rearview mirror.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Paul, do your parents still have this white turtleneck? Because if they lose against Palace, I feel like they need to drive down to Molyneux and personally hand him this white turtleneck, because based on what I'm seeing from that photo, there's a possibility that could fit him, even though you were 14.
Yeah, but potentially. I think it's been it's been long sent to the given to a good cause. So maybe it's kicking around somewhere in Wolverhampton to this day. Some poor unfortunate soul is wearing it, but it's not in our household anymore, unfortunately.
We put out an APB on Twitter. Where is Paul's white Wolves turtleneck?
It could be one like what's the fella's name? Steve Plant does for Wolves Match Worn, where it's all of the jerseys, and he'll get these new arrivals, the match worn ones that are just freshly got mud on them, and maybe we could enlist some help to track this thing down.
Who is the whole lot of Wolves guest that probably would be most likely to have that turtleneck, and why is it Andrew Smith? Love you, Andrew.
Bonus prediction for Saturday. Brighton is on the south coast, right?
Yeah.
I think it's going to be in the 60s in Fahrenheit. We're seeing chest hair again. I'm with Chris. I think he's going but elevated level, but like summer's coming. Look, couple buttons undone. I think we're seeing that from Lopetegui.
Do you think Lopetegui wears socks with his sandals?
No,
you don't think so?
I don't think he wears socks with his loafers or anything. I think he's like full on, just like.
Chris, would he be sporting the banana hammock with you on the beach?
He's Spanish. Going to Ibiza and just kind of hanging out, little. Let it, just do his thing.
I mean, he was in the club in Birmingham, Bar Zero or Zero Bar, or whatever it's called. And I thought he was showing chest in that, but it turns out he was just wearing like a nude colored shirt. But I thought he was showing chest in that too, which is why I tweeted, man, he's been showing so much chest lately since he went to the club. But I looked at that picture a little closer when I wasn't drunk and looking on my phone, and I realized, oh, okay,
when you weren't
he was
drunk
actually wearing a shirt
and staring at 50-year-old male managers. That's
yeah, exactly.
Tan is definitely in his color wheel. He enjoys the tan quite a bit.
Big time.
This is true. All right. I think we have some very interesting no stupid questions this week, Alex.
Yes, we do. Let's get to some of the ones we did not get to already earlier in the show. These are the fun ones that have nothing to do with the current team or form or anything. So first from Stu, he asks, and we're going to have to lean on Paul on this, I think, is there an American equivalent of the Carry On or Confessions films, which caused me to Google the Carry On franchise, which is a British comedy franchise comprising of 31 films. Holy crap. Oh, man. So, Paul, I don't know much about these films. I don't know if you do, Josh or Chris. Josh, I know you watch a lot of films.
Just what I Googled as well today. Maybe Paul can explain it a little better. When I was reading it, I was kind of getting like scary movie, Naked Gun type vibes, but even those didn't last 30 some movies. Like that's even more than the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Yeah.
You're not too far away with those descriptions. The more modern ones would be American Pie or Austin Powers. But even then, the carry-ons had so much. It was more innuendo, or it was some like a car would go past the big bosomed woman and something would catch and it would whip away a bikini top. You would never see anything, but it'd be like she'd cross it and that would be the little bit glimpse of flesh that you got. So that would be the more like modern version, but not as crass as like the American Pie, or not as explicit in terms of what they were alluding to. But
So no dick shots, that's good.
did you, or do any of you know of Benny Hill? Yeah, like the music. It's a little like that. So Benny Hill, Carry On, those types of comedy, if that's what you call it. But I think even I've got no idea what a confessions film is, so I probably have to Google that as well. Sounds a little risque to me though. So
all I was thinking was like Red Shoes Diary or Taxi Cab Confessions.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I Googled it and it said it's a British comedy sex comedy series. So I guess it's
it's Red Shoes Diary, or no, Sex in the City. That's probably what it is, right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, probably.
I don't know.
I was thinking Jackass for the Carry On, or Broken
I
Lizard.
thought Jackass too.
Super Troopers and Beer Fest and those.
They just have a new one that came out too on Hulu, right? Called Quasi.
I think so. I think they have another.
Not my favorite guys, but but still,
there's a little
31
National Lampoons in there as well in terms
there
of
you
the
go,
themes.
Paul.
Like there'd be Carry On to the Beach or Carry On Up the Mountain, and they all had some sexual innuendo, like Twin Peaks and stuff for the mountains, and it's like porno themed, but without any porn actually ever happening. Just that cheesy storyline and everything.
So with this Confessions, would that be like Skinamax late night? Alex, you're looking it up.
I mean, yeah, I didn't dig much deeper into it. I was just reading the Confessions British film Wikipedia. Confessions of a series. Yeah, it says it's an example of awful British sex comedies. Their 1970s quadrilogy about the misadventures of Timothy. Yeah, and like the movie poster for it is like a woman having her like bathing suit ripped off by a guy who's like about to also possibly get eaten by a shark or something that's in the water. So yeah, it seems like it's.
Now I hope these are at least attractive British guys and not Steve Cooper's.
Well, what they did with the Carry On film is one of the major characters, he was phenomenally camp, like gay in real life, but always played like the straight male. So you just had these really over the top expressions. Harris. Yeah, it was just that extreme. It was that extreme that it was actually someone of the opposite sexual orientation that they had playing the character. They extended it, they stretched it that much. It was that bad. It was good.
I never thought that question would warrant that long of a conversation. Good job, Stu.
Yeah. All right, and let's go to another one from Todd DeWitt, friend of show, frequent guest, who asks if the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Splinter were to enter a five-a-side tournament, what positions would they be playing?
Okay, this really hit close because, and I'm going to show you guys this. I have all of the Ninja Turtles on my desk. I am a huge Ninja Turtles guy. I grew up on Ninja Turtles. In fact, every morning I would eat Ninja Turtle cereal while wearing my Ninja Turtle shirt and watching Ninja Turtles on the cartoons. I own all the, so I love Ninja Turtles. So I really put a lot of thought into this. Obviously, the point guard's going to be Splinter. He's kind of that Chris Paul, he's older. He's going to be dishing the ball. He's going to be shouting the directions, right? Raphael's going to be playing center. He's going to be doing the dirty work. He's the Dennis Rodman, he's one of those DeAndre Jordan types that's going to be muscling in there. I feel like Donatello is very versatile, so he'd be playing power forward. He can play those angles, get those rebounds. He can start the fast break after getting the rebound. Michelangelo, he seems like the flashy shooting guard who's going to get hot and just start throwing up heat checks all the time. And then Leonardo as the team leader, I think he's, definitely a small forward, that guy that can, he's going to play the tough defense. He's going to get you that big pass or the big shot when you need it. So I think I broke that down pretty well. Chris, you got anything to add to that one?
Ironically enough, everything you just said was the exact same. I mean, I was actually thinking more along the lines of proper football, but instead of hoops. But Raphael, definitely the defensive guy. Just from the soccer perspective, I was thinking Donatello as the goalkeeper. Leonardo was a midfielder. Michelangelo was definitely up front forward, and Splinter was more of the Cunha type, where Michelangelo has to be more of the the flashy scorer up front. So that was kind of
I did just realize that question was meant to be a soccer question, wasn't it? And I totally turned it into basketball.
I wasn't going to interrupt you. I was like, you're rolling, just go with it. And then we'll just do it
God
after.
damn it. I saw 5-a-side in basketball is immediately what I thought.
The best NBA playoffs are going on. It's top of mind.
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So Leonardo, I think, is going to be goalie. Raphael's going to fill that defensive mid. I actually think Splinter could be playing the Moutinho. He's going to be the center mid, kind of doing some stuff in there. Paul's disagreeing here. Donatello. I actually think Donatello could be a good number 9 as a hold-up guy with, a number 10 of Michelangelo. Paul disagrees here.
Well, I don't disagree with the lineup. I'm just really worried that if Splinter plays central midfield by himself, he's totally getting overrun by Bebop and Rocksteady. Totally.
God, I love this podcast.
Just like the Wolves.
That's Bebop.
April O'Neil up in the booth. Yes, April O'Neil on the call, on the color commentary. That would be fantastic.
Splinter's got to be playing up top, right? I mean, not Splinter, Shredder. Shredder's got to be playing up top. I could see Krang sitting back at goalie with pulling some nonsense, and then you got Baxter Stockman. Baxter Stockman would probably be a good wing, the Rat
Casey
King.
Jones?
Huh? Casey Jones? Ooh. See, that's another good defensive midfielder right there. Casey. In fact, actually, I want to change my mind. Casey Jones would be the hold-up number 9 right there. And then, Donatello maybe like a right back for Donatello. Because Casey Jones seems like a Costa type. Alex, did you like Ninja Turtles growing up?
I did, yeah. I was pretty into Ninja Turtles. I'm not going to argue with any of. For some reason, the only thing that's like kind of different that popped into my mind was that Splinter would be in goal, just because it requires a little bit less of running.
And he's still pretty athletic, yeah.
And good communication. I feel like it's like, where our spine is built up the middle, right? And we want that guy like as the brain seeing everything in front of us. But for 5-a-side, I don't know. Maybe it's not as important.
Who's your favorite Ninja Turtle? Mine was always Donatello. Paul, who's your favorite?
Was always Michelangelo.
See, I figured you were more of a Leonardo type. That's interesting. Alex has to be Michelangelo.
I was, yeah.
Yeah. And then I'm gonna say
how'd
Chris.
You peg me that so easily? My God.
I don't know. And I'm gonna say Chris as a Phillies guy, he's a Raphael dude.
Oddly enough, our dog's name was Raphael, named after the Ninja Turtle.
Wow.
brother, but I was a Michelangelo guy.
Michelangelo guy. Okay. Well, he was a party dude. Hey, I think I, that pretty well. I got very passionate about Ninja Turtles, even though I screwed up the sport, but that's okay. And I'm not even drinking because I'm still sick. So
That's it for No Stupid Questions this week. Again, we take them every week on Twitter, WLW Pod, the show's Twitter handle. You'll see us prompting for them if you follow us. Take the responses there. And if you want to email us your No Stupid Questions, hello@wholelotofwolves.com is where you can do that.
Chris, I think you've gotten your Twitter account issues situated, right? So how can we find you online?
I mean, even my good account lost its blue check mark now. May have gotten it back. At Chris Fischer _ Fischer is FISCHER. So at Chris Fischer _ Yes, thank you for the plug there.
And as we wrap, listener, we are going to be back at the start of next week when we break down everything that will have happened in those two games against Palace and Brighton. And then we'll be looking forward to what is generally the traditional run-in, the last month of the season. And it is quite a tasty home game, West Midlands Derby versus Aston Villa on May the 6th. So in the meantime, let's hope these two games from the Wolves help to relax Chris's sphincter and everyone up the mighty Wolves.